work all the time, work for a living, basically.
I guess age 13 up.
So at age 13, you worked for a living pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
And you
Had
went
to
to
help my mother out
school and worked until you were how old?
forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the way through high school and started working my way through college.
Tell us about how that went between, I guess, when you were 14 years old up until you graduated from college.
Well, when I was 13, I got a paper route in Pasadena, Texas. I was delivering to Beaumont Enterprise in Journal. Somebody at the door.
Okay, so tell us again what you were doing between 14 and however old.
I was delivering a morning and evening paper, Beaumont Enterprise and Journal.
Mm-hmm.
Started at 4 in the morning, went to about 7, and went to school. Came back, went back out and delivered the evening paper and got through about 6, 4 to 6, something like that. It wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm. So what'd you do after that? I mean, what was your, how did you balance work and school between then and when you finished college?
Well, it wasn't hard. I was a good student down in the lower grades. Then when I got into high school, anyway, as I grew older and still in the public school system, I worked as a longshoreman on the weekends, cut yards, dug ditches, daily non-skill type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then in college I boxed for 2 years, Sam Houston State,
Mm-hmm.
but I broke a hand badly. And they informed me I was out of scholarship, so I enlisted in the Marine Corps. It was 1951 anyway, when the Korean War had just started. So I enlisted in the Marine Corps because I heard they were going to renew the GI Bill of Rights,
Mm-hmm.
which they did.
And what did the GI Bill do?
It gave you $40 a month and pay some of your tuition. $80 a month, I'm sorry.
So what was the GI Bill?
It was $100 a month, and they had the tuition. Tuition wasn't anything. It's $25 a semester.
Uh-huh.
Believe it or not, back in 51. Not 51, 50, on up. It never got high at all.
So you went into the Marines to get the GI Bill, or you went back into the Marines to get the
No,
GI Bill?
I went into the Marine Corps in 51 enlisted man to get the GI Bill of Rights.
Mm-hmm.
Planning to come back after I finished the 3-year enlistment, which I did. And then I came back and stayed 2.5 years and graduated with a double major English and phys ed.
How old were you at the time?
I was 21 when I enlisted in the Marine Corps, 24 when I got out, and went back to college at age 24, and I was 26 when I graduated. So in all, it took 8 years counting enlisted time.
Mm-hmm. What did you do when you first graduated from college? What happened after that? Where were you?
Oh, I was at home in Lamarck, Texas,
Uh-huh.
and I checked on teachers' wages. 'Cause like I said, I had a degree to teach English and to coach, and the wages were $3,000 a year if you got a high-paying school all over.
Uh-huh.
So I decided to go back in the Marine Corps again as an officer because they paid $7,000 a year.
Ooh. They paid $7,000 to be a Marine Corps officer, $3,000 to be a teacher.
Yeah.
This was back in the 50s?
Yeah, it was 1956. And I wanted to teach and coach. I wasn't that interested in going back in the Corps. But you got to be sensible, not married.
Uh-huh.
Mary and I had married July 13, 1956, so I went back in the Corps.
Mm-hmm. How do you think things were different around that time in the mid-50s than they are today? Say
More honorable. You didn't have all these little groups of people, if you call them people, who went out of their way to find something wrong with the country. They didn't find anything wrong with the benefits of the country. But they nowadays, in the 60s, they started learning how to find all kinds of things wrong with the country. Or so they thought, or were informed to do so by Hollywood. And I won't talk about that anymore because they're despicable.
What are some of the things that are better, you think, today than at that time?
Prices on certain things have gone down, such as televisions and watches.
Yeah.
Automobiles are more costly, but they have a longer guarantee. In the old days, you buy a brand new car, you got 12,000 miles, or 1 year, whichever occurred first. That's all you got. You paid for directional lights, you paid for a heater, you paid for a radio. So the little 2,000, 3,000 for a new car would usually end up costing 4,000 to 5,000.
That was a lot of money back then.
Yeah, it was.
Who at that time, around 1955 or so, who at that time was the most important to you? Most important person to you?
Well, of course, Mary, my wife, grandma, but my mother. She was the most important person in my life because she was honorable. She was a good, hard-working lady. She took in washings and ironing so we could eat regularly when we were little children, and she continued to do it. Or I don't know how many years till she's almost 70.
And there's her picture right there. How old do you think she was at that time?
About a year or 2 years before she died. She's a good old lady.
So that was in the 70s.
Yeah. She died in 1979.
If you had it all to do over again from that time, what do you think you would do different with perfect hindsight?
Perfect hindsight.
Yeah.
As a Marine officer, I'd keep my mouth shut a little more. And if I had wanted to get ahead more in the Corps, I would have learned when to smile and when to frown. But they tell you in peacetime that your duty as an officer is to take care of your men. They tell you that in wartime, your duty as a Marine Corps officer is the mission. I agree thoroughly, but it isn't always that way.
In reality, it wasn't that way.
No.
Well, what do you think? Abby's going to be watching this when she's around 22 years old and going out into the real world. And what advice would you give her based upon what you learned?
To continue to be like she is. She's free spirit. She has a hard head, inherited from the Johnsons. But just control it, keep your mouth shut. Don't let it get into fifth gear forward instead of normal. And she won't. She's a good child, extremely good child. But she'll do all right. She's extremely intelligent. I'll tell you how intelligent she is. She was getting me to tell her some on the cruise to Alaska. She was getting me to tell her about a dog I had that lived 17 years. And anyway, I told her I loved that dog as much or more than my brothers because he's a companion, a good friend. And she said, well, when you die and go to heaven, you'll get to see him. He'll be waiting for you, and you can talk to him because dogs can talk in heaven.
She said that yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Extremely pleasant child.
How would you describe Abby today at 6 years old?
She's headstrong, which is all right. That's better than meek and mild. Meek and mild gets shoved around. And that getting shoved around affects them all the way into adulthood. Abby will challenge you, and that's okay too. But it takes good, loving parents, two of them, to really meet the test with her. She's a good child. She's got a lot of promise. She'll make it. She'll do it.
Well, what kind of message would you give to Abby? This is going to be about 16 years from now when she's going to get that. What kind of message would you like to give to her?
Be honorable and be kind, especially to people. We don't have stations in life in America, but we have an unwritten station in life, such as deckhands, people that work to fix your bed and everything. Be kind to those people, because they're not, all they're trying to do is survive, and they're working, they're attempting to survive. And they mean no harm 98% of the time. And she'll be kind, it'll be returned when it counts.
Well, in the 1950s, what can you remember as one of the happiest moments for you?
Graduating from college, I was called in by the registrar in 1956,
Uh-huh.
and he said, "Mr. Johnson, you're one grade point shy of graduating." And I said, and didn't talk bad, I said, "Jesus Christ, I can't stay up here this summer and take a course. I've got to pay off debts for money I borrowed." And he said, "Well, you're ex-enlisted Marine." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "What's the hurry?" I said, "Well, they only have one Marine qualifying officer's candidate course between now and 57. I said, "In 57, I'll be 27 years of age, so I'll miss getting commissioned by 46 days." And he said, "Well, you were enlisted, like I said." He said, "I'm going to give you credit for your ROTC." He said, "A B in it. It's a 1 hour course a week." He said, "You just made a B." And like a jerk, I said, "They didn't have ROTC up here then." He said, "Shut up, Mr. Johnson." I said, "Yes, sir." So he gave me the one credit, which was worth 2 grade points. I graduated by 1 grade. I had good intelligence and everything, but I couldn't study. I didn't have time to study. I worked up there too, at the service station and for the college.
What else do you remember during that time that was a happy moment for you?
When I married, I met Mary.
Uh-huh.
She was a full-time student at Sam Houston also, my junior year. And I met her. I was taking people home on the weekends when I drive home to work on the docks down in Lamar, Texas City, Galveston. But when I met her, because she was like me. She came from a poor financial background, extremely poor. And it worked. She's one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life.
Well, tell me about the day you met her. How did that happen? I don't think I've ever heard that story before. Where'd you meet her, and how did it happen?
I put a sign up in the girls' dorm, because Little Sam Houston was so small then. They had a girls' dormitory and a singular boys' dormitory. And one of them put up a sign, anyone wanting a ride to Galveston home, round trip to Galveston, not Galveston, I mean Lamar or Texas City or Hitchcock, $5 round trip.
And you had the car?
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of car did you have at the time?
It was a little 54. A 51. It was a 1951 Plymouth.
Plymouth. Okay.
Ex-Texas cab. It had 100,000 miles on it when I bought it. It was a good car.
That was a lot of miles back then.
Oh yeah. And anyway, she called over to Jackson Shaver Hall, where I was the operator of incoming calls, switchboard operator. So she said, I want to ride. I'd like a ride to Texas City. I said, okay. And that's how we met.
And so, when did you first see her? Did you meet somewhere or something like that to go?
Oh, I drove by the dormitory and picked her up.
Okay.
I told her I'll be by and pick you up.
And there she is now. He's talking about when he first met you. He said he thought you was ugly the first time he saw you.
The worst day of my life.
They have something on the speaker.
You can't hear when that door closes.
And so what did you think of her the first time you saw her?
Beautiful.
Uh-huh.
And she was nice.
Did you have a dog at that time?
Yeah, that old dog of mine was still living. He lived.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he lived from 1939 to 1956. I had to take him to the vet just before we got married, I had to have him put down, knocked over, knocked
Mhm.
out, because he was really in pain and everything, couldn't walk anymore.
And one thing I've never asked about is how you proposed to Mom. How did that happen?
Well, she proposed to me, actually. I'm joking. No, that's right at the end. She had to drop out and financially help her father get his business started financial-wise. So she dropped out of college and went to work full-time at Amoco as a secretary.
Mom, go ahead with what you're saying.
Yeah, my senior year in college, when I finally got there, ready to graduate, I proposed to her. She said, yes, but you'll have to ask my father. I had to have his permission. This is old times, the way it was then. She said, I'll have to have his permission to marry you. He'll have to discuss it with my mother. So I said, okay. So I went to Mr. Williams. Now, I always liked him. I grew to love him, actually. He's a good man. And he said, yes, but Bobby, you got to agree. You can't move away with her or more in a short period that she can get home for emergencies or something. And I proposed because I figured the airplanes flew fast enough from California, she could get home soon. But he and I became really good friends.
Well, what was he like at that time? Because I only knew him from the 70s, and this is Abby's grandfather on Mom's side. So what was he like at that time?
Hard working. He almost worked himself to death.
Yeah.
And he helped all his children financially. He didn't have to help us, thank God, financially, but he helped them, the others, as they needed. I only got borrowed money from him one time only. I'd already bought the tickets for a family trip going to Vegas. And the transmission went out on my car. So $300 spending money is like $1,000 now.
What year was this?
This is after we came out of the Marine Corps in '60. So it's about 1970.
Okay.
And I went in and I said, Mr. Williams, I hate to ask, but I've got to borrow $300. He said, what for? So I explained I didn't have any money for us to spend out in Vegas. And he said, now how much do you need? I said, $300. He said, no. And I almost said something crude. He said, never go out there with just enough money to get by home. I'll loan you $500. So he is a good man. I had him paid back in less than a year.
What was Grandmom like at that time?
She'd had too many children too fast. She had 5 children, and she was still fixing. She was a very honorable, honest woman and everything, but very confrontational.
Yeah. So did she settle down later on?
Yeah, as she aged, she did. And she was a good woman.
Who was around at that time? Y'all were living in Lamarck at the time, or in the 50s when you got married? Were you in Lamarck?
No, what we did, we got married, and then in July, and we stayed in an apartment house until September. Then I went up to Quantico, Virginia, to the officer candidate class. That lasted 4 months, and I was commissioned a second lieutenant. And Mary stayed home and worked full time and helped her parents financially get that company going, Williams Insulation Corporation company. And I stayed up and went to basic officers class, which lasted 9 months. And she came up there after I'd completed 6 months of it. It was good that way too, because I stayed in bachelor officer quarters and I could study every night, so I did well in basic.
Okay, well I think that about wraps it up.
Okay.
Almost out of tape, so thank you, Pop.
My pleasure.